Nice to meet you all. My name is Deidre Diamond. Thank you for coming. I'm curious, before we start, somebody share with me, why'd you come to this talk? There aren't many talks on soft skills going on, so maybe that's it, and I gave you one answer, but help me out. Somebody share with me. What brought you to this meeting, to this topic?
It was a win-win.
Win-win?
Yeah.
Have you heard of win-win before? Yeah. Have you ever taken a course in win-win? Anybody? It's interesting. It wasn't but maybe 3 or 4 years ago where I realized how rare my career is. And this is why I'm out talking. I want to help. I was pretty insulated until about 3 or 4 years ago, meaning I worked for the same serial entrepreneurs for 20 years, 3 different companies. And really was involved in our own and what we were all doing and constantly consumed by us. And it wasn't until I founded my own organization, CyberSN, and then brainbabe.org, that I started getting out into the world and realizing, holy cow, not only is my career rare as a woman, my career is rare in that I was able to stay in business with people and not have breakups and not change my job every 12 to 18 months as the statistics are showing us. And as I became a first-time CEO of a software company 7 years ago, I found that my engineers and all of the other departments loved the same content that I was teaching my sales folks. And so between that experience of becoming a CEO, as well as the experience of getting out in the community and realizing how rare my career was, that I thought, oh my gosh, I got to get out there and help. I got to get out there and teach. And so that's where these talks come from. This is our number one use of skills today. We are a service industry. Tech is a service industry in that we service each other. We can't do anything alone. Everything we do is in teams, large teams, small teams, doesn't matter, it's all teams. And I don't know that we take enough consideration, I don't believe we take enough consideration to how our words affect ourselves, each other, and ultimately it comes down to our words. When we're talking about owning our career, it's all about how one communicates. So remember this as we're moving along, and we'll share some fun examples. Just even things I've heard today on the trade floor as people have been talking about this concept. I'm going to use those examples. So let's look at some statistics. These are the statistics that are real and true, and they're out there. So ISC Squared surveyed, what's the number one thing hiring managers want? Communication skills. Somebody that runs a staffing agency, we're always laughing when the first thing somebody says, or whether it's first or last actually, good communication skills. Yeah. Who doesn't want good communication skills? Everybody does. Who's training on good communication skills? Nobody. So that's why we laugh. We think it's hysterical in that, of course, we all want it. However, where is it going to come from? And what's a good communicator to you versus somebody else and what have you? However, this is the number one thing. Yet we really don't have a place for training. We don't have a place for consistent follow-up on our training and feedback and what have you. I'm going to change that. However, this is a statistic that is plaguing us. I can tell you that we, as a staffing agency, put a lot of folks in front of people, and communication skills is usually the number one thing as to why the person didn't get the job over somebody else. Right? The tech skills are the tech skills. So, from that perspective, let's look deeper. Let's look deeper in terms of what's going on in the marketplace. These statistics are really interesting. We've got 45% of folks out there are concerned about their lack of opportunity and achievement. So if we think about this one statistic, and we think, okay, so we're going to utilize win-win communication to change these statistics. How many people feel comfortable going and telling the people they work with that they're not sure there's opportunity for advancement there for them, or where they're currently working? How many people do we think really feel that comfort level of going to talk? Not many. So that's why this statistic exists, because I can tell you, again, from the perspective of running a staffing agency, that I'll see a candidate left a job because they believe they can't get more training at their company. But then we go fill that job, and one of the things they're selling to the candidate that's coming in is that there's training available. How crazy is that? It literally happens on a regular basis. And why? Fear of communication. Fear of having that conversation. And so what I want to do, and I want to change these statistics, I want to empower people to be able to have these conversations such that they're win-win, so that they're not, A, going to get fired, or demoted, or somebody thinks they're not committed, or any of those things that we're all afraid are going to happen if we go have those conversations, right? So, unsatisfied with leadership. Who goes and tells their boss that they're unsatisfied with their leadership? I do. But I was trained to. I was given the tools to and how to. And my staff does the same with me. and vice versa. That is something that we can all create. But again, if we're not willing to have the conversation, then these statistics will just continue. And what do these statistics ultimately mean? They ultimately mean a lot of unhappiness at work. And that's the thing that bugs me out the most, and particularly, again, my career being so rare, happy as can be for 20 years. And again, still happy. My point is that, I went out on my own eventually. They retired, by the way, or we'd still be together. But anyhow, these statistics really breed depression, alcoholism, drug abuse, literally lack of retention in our jobs, moving jobs every 12 to 18 months. This is the outcome of these statistics. And then, what's the answer? It's win-win communication. The ability to communicate without fear is the name of the game. It's getting worse because we've moved into a digital era, and so job searching has become a digital function, and it's broken. And so, all you're nodding your heads. And what does broken mean? It means this. It means you're working, most of the time, 95% of the time, while you're looking for work. So that means, in this industry, you're working 60 hours minimum a week. When are you interviewing? Behind people's backs that you work for, your colleagues, your bosses, and that's hard, that's terrible, it's a stressful thing. And you're maybe going on one interview every month, maybe two. By the time you go through that whole process and get your offer, you're settling and you don't even know it most of the time. Why? The stress. The stress of interviewing, the stress of out there looking, well, geez, it's been this hard, this is at least better. And it's not better, and if you ever accept a job thinking, at least this is better, it won't be. You need to accept a job. My gut says, yeah, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. So when we add on the digital era of job searching to what's already a dysfunctional communication environment that we have because we don't train on it in school very much, very few courses, right? Then now these numbers are going to trend to go up, and that's why they're going up. So it's really disturbing. I'm a social criminal justice major, if I didn't say that, so it's something I like to pay attention to constantly is why do people do what they do? Why are the decisions that we make the decisions we make? And it's when we really look into this, you can see that it's complicated, and yet truly there is one skill set that would get rid of this for everybody, which is the ability to have win-win communication and not be fearful to have it. Not be fearful to have it. So, interesting stuff. I wish you all were like, oh, no, these are the statistics. It doesn't look, nobody's doing that out there at all. Let's, together change things. All right, so I just want to bring us back to this. Remember, words. I mean, what starts war? Words. What creates a treaty of war? Words. They're the most powerful thing we occupy in terms of our communication skills. So never forget that. Never forget that. And we spend most of our time working together. We spend more time with each other, saying words, exchanging words, than we do with anybody else. We better take damn serious what words do. Right? So today I was sharing with a gentleman that is a CISO here, he said he just moved jobs, and the reason he moved jobs is that his last boss said to him, investing in training in people like you is not what we want to do. Now, you all may say, that's crazy, who says that? I think a lot of people talk that way. Raise your hand if that kind of communication happens around you regularly. Right? Let's raise our hands, I'm curious. So really, seriously. Okay, so we're at maybe 40% of the room here. That's better than most of the time. But 40% of the time, 40% of your day, you're meeting words like that? It's not going to be functional. There's no way that's a functional environment. Okay, so that's one example just today. Happens all the time. So again, in terms of backing into this, when we think about words and the words that we have to communicate when we're with each other every day, I say that I keep this formula in my brain as I'm working throughout my day. Because I know this is what matters to me, and at the end of the day I'm a human being, and thus it matters to everybody. And so every time I'm going into a conversation and I'm thinking, how do I get win-win? I remind myself that this is what we all want. This is what we all want at work. Okay? So if I'm going to go into a conversation and I'm going to use win-win about my career path, I've got to recognize that the person I'm talking to also cares about their career paths. So the key to win-win is that we're able to think about the other person's needs as well as our needs. Because if we can understand their needs and our needs, and then have the conversation, we're going to win. Both parties are going to win. So I can't go in and have a conversation about a career path with my boss if I'm not in tune with that person's career path. So I'm going to start there. So I'm going to think about, how am I going to have a conversation? Well, I got to understand the person I'm talking to as how they see career paths, their career path. So the idea of win-win is that you're an investigator before you're going in for the conversation of creating what you want to create, meaning you need to be an information gatherer. And the key is always having this on the back of our minds. Everybody wants to be paid fairly. Everybody wants to be treated correct, with respect. Okay, so these 7 things are what we all want. However, number 3 here is what we use to get them. And I really do believe that it is an individual's responsibility to get them. I don't know about the rest of you, but I grew up believing for a long time until into my 30s when I took a course and learned something different, that my relationship with you is 50% you and 50% me. Is that what everybody else was trained on? Yeah? 50-50? It's 50% you? No. No. In fact, that's a very weak stance. That means only 50% of the time I have the chance of getting what I want. Wow! That means 50% of the time I could lose. I could walk away losing, feeling poorly. Let's define what losing, by the way, means. To me, it's emotions. Because whenever we go into a negative emotion, a depressed emotion, a down emotion, we're losing. Right? That's not fun. It doesn't feel good. It creates other problems, both biologically as well as relationships with others. Right? Nobody has a problem with somebody that they love talking to, they love hanging out with. So let's recognize that it's emotions that we're seeking to create. Such that when people walk away and there's a true win-win communication, it doesn't necessarily mean that they got what they came to that meeting to get. It means that they walked away feeling good. Nobody gets exactly what they want. It's how they walk away feeling about what they got. So when I'm thinking about having my conversations, emotions are a part of this. And the emotion of win-win is that everybody feels good. How many people walk into meetings thinking about, how are people feeling today? What's the emotions of the room? What's the emotion I want to create? I want to create a positive emotion. I want to create that person left feeling like they're winning, even though they didn't get what they came to that meeting to get. That's the name of the game. Because we all know it's not possible for everybody to get what they came into the meeting to get. Because once, sort of you get into the circumstances and the details, it's pretty obvious that it's not going to go that way. However, the process of getting into the details, getting into the circumstances, is very emotional. And if one doesn't choose their words wisely, if one doesn't come from the perspective of understanding who's the audience, thinking about the audience, preparing such that their message is landing on the audience such that they're going to feel good, then you're not going to win. You're not going to walk away with win-win. And what ends up happening is rank wins. Politics wins. Musical chairs ends, and who wins? The person with the most power. Ugly place to be. So, not a fun place to be. Number 2 up here, I'll tell you, it's the number one reason there's breakdown in an organization is whether or not an agreement is measurable. Truly measurable from a perspective of math is the only thing that's truly measurable. So, greater, better, faster, cheaper, that's not measurable. I want you to raise sales by 10%. That's not measurable. Even by saying 10%, it's still not measurable. What sales? Which product? Which service? 10% of what part of revenue? Gross, net, what are we talking about? And I see this all the time in terms of breakdown, is measurable agreements aren't there. So anyhow, this sort of package of training on all of these things is courses and courses and courses. However, if I can leave you all, and we're not done by any means, but if I can leave you all and say, okay, win-win communication is the name of the game. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to leave a meeting feeling good, making sure that other people feel good. The first place you're going to start is understanding who you're talking to, what their career path is, what their needs are, what their projects are, what their measurable agreements are, what are they responsible for in the organization, how do they get measured, such that you can come up with an idea, a thought, a project that really speaks to them. So it's really these sort of pulling from this greater meeting or class that I teach to say, if we're just going to have 45 minutes to focus on win-win, you must understand that all 7 of these things are what everybody wants. You must think about people from this perspective, and you must start with what agreements are they responsible for? How are they measured? How are they measured for success? So that whatever you need can be positioned that way. So, this is science at its best. I have a great friend who can't believe that my sociology degree has the word science in front of it. So I take a picture of it and I send it to him and I put it in his desk and do all kinds of fun things on a regular basis just to mess with him. But the reality is social skills, soft skills, it is a science. It's the science of people and the science of communication and the science of words and language. And we're talking verbal words, we're talking email words. I mean, my goodness, we start looking at emails and this whole thing gets even more complicated, right? I mean, how many times have you pushed that send button and go, oh God, I wish I didn't push that send button, or, I'll just close my eyes, I'm going to hit send, and just hope that it goes well. I've done that, trust me, in my career, and I don't ever want to do it again. But any comments before we move on and get deeper into win-win? Questions, thoughts coming to mind? Sharing an example of being in a meeting recently where it wasn't win-win, or it was win-win.
Good.
Yes?
But it has to be a two-way street. You don't want a one-way communication like talking to the wall.
Yeah.
So the person you're attempting to have this conversation has to also be, willing to receive this conversation.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing.
Yes.
Especially when they think they have all that power.
Yes.
And they just know it all.
Yes.
And you're just noise.
Yeah. And it's harder coming from Fortune 200, which you're in, where I'm used to more startups where you get more interaction, you're closer, you're spending more time. It's even harder to do it in the Fortune, let's say 500. So that's your research. That's where you prepare before you walk into that room. That's where you do your studying on who's in this room. What is their story? What are they responsible for? How are they measured? What does their career path look like? And whatever answers you don't have, start there when you sit down. Arrive a little bit early. See if if it's possible if they're there a little early. Even if they're not there early, just start there. Hey Michelle, before we get going here, I have a couple of questions that will help me position and really think and understand how how I'm gonna help you the best. How are you measured? What are the projects that you must deliver? What does that look like? If you haven't had that yet with somebody you're starting to do an engagement with, then you're just going to be constantly behind trying to figure it out after you say something, after you do something, and it comes out of their mouth that that's not pleasing to them. Then you're backtracking and you're trying to figure it out. So it's okay to start there. And I think that's the challenge, Michael, is there's a lot of egos in the room, right? A lot of people coming into position and power, so you gotta be chill. It's hard. It's harder than technology.
You've said it, we're going into we're in a digital world, transition. And one of the problems is the thought.
The what?
The thought process.
Yes.
Of the person to understand where modern times are. And they need to change themselves. And for them not to be willing to make that change, it's almost trying to, it's just not lining up. The screw won't go in the bolt because the bolt is too small, and the bolt is like this. It's just not lining up here.
Yep.
That's a big issue.
Yeah.
And this is what we're facing in our industry of technology. My days of technology go back to Digital Equipment Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
But what I holistically have been seeing is that we're not recalibrating the skill sets and to communications to receiving and to be innovative, to think that I need to be at this level to receive it. It might be because of lack of knowledge, and they want to just stay in their comfort zone. But when you bring an advanced conversation to somebody, they view it as noise because it makes them look really bad. And they're supposed to be here. And by doing that, you're bringing them down here.
Yeah, and which means the communication you're using isn't the communication that works. And nobody wants to hear that, particularly somebody, even yourself or me. When it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I take responsibility. It's 100% me. Did I not finish that thought? I don't think I finished that thought. I'm 100% responsible for the relationships I have in my life. I can create whatever I want to create. So, meaning, if I didn't do it right the first time, I got to figure it out. Because I can tell you, as a woman who's been in boardrooms, selling software companies, taking software companies public, doing deals with Bain Capital, having insurance policies taken out on my life, I would never have made it in those rooms if I wasn't able to have the conversation that didn't turn those people off. And I know those people, I know what you're talking about, and quite frankly, they're just other humans. It is a skill set. It is the master of words, emotions, body language. But Michael, the thing is none of you were being trained on it. All of you technologists that went through amazing technology training and then you practice your craft every day, which is why you get better and better. Where's the training with the communication skills? Because it isn't just going to happen because we have one class. It isn't going to happen because we read a book. It's classes that you have to start, and then for me, it was 15 years of every day of my life the first year that I joined the company that I joined, and then it was once a week, and then by the time I was a vice president, it was once a month, and then it was once a month forever. We were in some sort of training. And then, of course, I was practicing my craft every day because I'm in sales, and what else do I have other than words? So when I think about all of the technologists out there, and I say, look at the statistics, and I look at the problem, I say, well, first of all, we're not getting the training. And when we do get the training, it's in a classroom, and then we're done. Where's the consistent behavioral building that muscle, right? The brain's a program. It has to become a subconscious skill set. It can't be something that's only a conscious skill set because we know how the brain works. It goes into subconscious mode most of the time. So if we can't develop it to be a habit through repetition of utilization of the skill every day, well, we're just back to square one all the time. And then it just comes down to, it's not to say that any of us are bad at it, right? And you're in boardrooms too all the time. So you've got to be pretty darn good at it. And yet it's still not a fun place to be. And that's the problem. And when it's not fun, then people lose. Projects do go sideways quite a bit, and then power reigns, and blah, 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 and then attrition occurs, and, we've just got this cycle. So it's hard, Michael, is my point. This is, I believe, harder than learning technology. Only because we don't have systems in place to foster it. We don't have them in elementary school through high school, and we certainly don't have them in college. And what organization is teaching them? Has anybody here worked for an organization, I would love to know, that trains on soft skills, trains on communication skills? No, one person, tell me, what do they do?
It's been quite a while. I've worked with adjudicated years, and that was a very strong thing, was the communication skills. We did some of the simple exercises, just for examples, were learning to accept praise, how to accept criticism, and to share those kinds of things with each other. That's just one example of the skills.
That's
It's a long
awesome.
time ago.
Right. That's the unfortunate part. Who else? I saw one other person. Yes. Yes. Rob.
I have an secretary and training class I created to specifically teach security people how to be better communicators because it is a problem.
Yeah.
AT&T's doing it.
AT&T, what are they doing?
They have a university. They're transforming their workforce for 2020. Big thing in the company is to teach the technical people how to communicate effectively, horizontally and vertically throughout the organization. And so this online courses, they have working groups that, sometimes they get in role plays to effectively prepare the workforce for the modern day. So it's a great...
Incredible. I'll have to check it out.
And they
there's a lady
collaborate
AT&T
with
in this room.
Georgia Tech. So.
I love it. I'm going to check it out. Georgia Tech. Yes.
I think some of the quality programs integrate those principles without talking about them.
Like what?
I don't like any
Oh, okay.
other reasons, but they will work on groups getting together to focus on particular kinds of problems, and in the building of how those groups are supposed to work together, that stuff is often closely integrated.
Okay.
It's not talked about as being
Right.
a function, but it's
Good. And so, not much, if anything. Wait, who's heard of situational leadership? 2, 3 people. Check it out. See if you can get it into your organization. It is the only program that I've ever gone to outside of our own training where I was like, wow. And I use it, and we implement it, and I live by it. And here's why it's so amazing. Situational leadership says, just like this number 2 here point is the foundation of everything that goes wrong, it says you don't manage people as a person. You know, this person's good at this or not good at this is too high level, versus what's the project or the task that this person needs to accomplish, and then what's their experience accomplishing that task. And then they have a 4-pronged model that says if they're totally inexperienced to a little bit more to completely experienced, depending on where that person fits within that project or that task, your level as a leader or a manager above them of interaction and involvement and responsibility to that project and task being completed correctly and on time, your involvement to what degree varies. So if they're what they call a D1, which is they have no experience, you're in that. You're doing it with them side by side. If they're a D4 and they've done it many a times and they've been successful, you don't even touch that. You're not even engaging in that. You're letting them go. And what ends up happening is that you're really engaging the person based on projects and tasks versus, oh, I micromanage this person or I don't micromanage this person, or I give them a little bit or I give them a lot, you know, depending on how I'm feeling or what's going on in the organization. That's a disaster approach, but that's what we utilize. So when I met situational leadership, and they've been around forever, they started back with Ford and the manufacturing companies and did all of their work in that, it was in those industries to begin with, and a psychologist started it. This is how we ought to be thinking about people and managing them, is projects and tasks. Now within that, you must have the win-win communication, you know, where it doesn't matter if you're involved or not involved, if you're turning people off all the time, right? The key to winning is turning people on. But other than situational leadership, I haven't found anything. That being said, situational leadership is so good it will transform your business. Yes?
Have you heard of the DISC training?
No, tell us. DISC training.
DISC training, and the C is lowercase for trademarking.
Okay.
So essentially what it is you fill out a questionnaire, and it's comprehensive enough so that you can't really lie about it. And you get different questions based on how you answer these questions, and essentially it's a personality profile. And then they teach you, so not only do you get to figure out what your personality is, but you get to figure out what the other personalities are of the people around you.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's genuine at work, right? You don't necessarily know all their personality types, and that's the question, that's the trick. Everybody's different. How you turn, what you say to turn one person on turns another person
Yes,
on.
it does. Yes.
So you have to have a familiarity with the people that you're dealing with. And to the point over there, you know, in large organizations, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah. I haven't heard of this, but I've heard of Myers-Briggs. I think that's probably something that a lot of us have heard, and it's the same
the
thing.
universe, for sure.
I love Myers-Briggs. Again, Myers-Briggs says, it's not that the words don't work, you know, for everybody. I do believe there's a universal language that works for everybody, and it's called coming from love and caring about who you're talking to and preparing and thinking win-win before you walk in, and that is a universal language that works for everybody. However, what doesn't work for everybody is when that conversation is happening, and what Myers-Briggs teaches you, and it taught me so much, is that, for instance, my, where I really learned this, I had a CFO that I always struggled with, and I didn't understand until I took that class that I can't just drop by his office and go, you know, and say all these, you know, I want to share this with you, and this whole positive stuff, I got this vision and this and that. For him, it's like, oh, you know, and I didn't, I didn't get that, but by taking Myers-Briggs, it taught me he needs an email beforehand. Here's what I want to meet with you. I want to talk about these things. So he has time to prepare. He's ready for me. He's excited. But when I just stop by and I interrupt whatever he's doing, it doesn't work for him. And you know what? That's cool. Even though, for me, stop by my office anytime, start something. I don't care what I'm doing, if I'm doing something, I'll say, you know what, I can't. But it's okay. It works for me. People can do that. And so I learned that. I learned through Myers-Briggs that it's not that there's different words that work for different people. It's when are you talking? What's the setting of the conversation? Did the person get to prepare or not? Because some people need to have the prep. Right?
It also teaches you how to disagree. Right?
Yes.
Because a lot of these, whether it's DISC or Myers-Briggs, they're all based on personality. But where I've always found the situational leadership to be so effective is we talk about muscle memory. I think you naturally, rather than think about what is the personality of the person I'm about to speak to versus what is the situation of the task at hand.
Exactly.
For me, with situational leadership, I find it to be so effective because every day, as a manager, as a leader, you're giving people tasks and you're understanding, is this person willing and able, is this person not willing, is qualified, whatever the case may be. By just constantly thinking in those actual situations that you go through throughout the day, you're building up the muscle memory, and it actually becomes second nature, and you realize that you've become an effective communicator versus making it about the personality. And the
Oh yeah, if you had to choose one, situational leadership, without a doubt. It is so powerful, and it teaches very junior people, how do you manage up? How do you take that same concept of tasks and projects and understanding and manage up, right? So there's theories of tasks and projects and working that way, and then there's our words. And what are the words that we're using when we go into these conversations? But how crazy is it that that's it? Nobody else can, nobody's thinking, these tons of trainings that are out there, right? So, raise your hand if you've been to situational leadership, just real quick, I'm curious again. So yeah, maybe 2%, 3%. Check it out for sure. See if you can get your firms to send you. And they'll actually bring trainers into your company, and it is really, really powerful. I've never had a negative experience from it. All right, so we've got about 6 minutes left, which is never enough time. I think that let's do a few mock win-win communication scenarios. Who's feeling like they want to participate and give me some scenarios of either a conversation that you want to have at work that you're afraid to have and you don't know how to set it up, or a share of a conversation you had recently that didn't go win-win, and we can evaluate it. And I know it's sort of, I'm going to blind myself here, it's off the cuff, fast, sort of putting it out there, but who wants to play? Somebody play.
I'm sure everybody in this room went through reviews.
Exactly, something.
Money.
You just raise your hand and share with us. So let's see if we can dissect it to a win-win conversation that would actually be win-win.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the end of a team meeting. We're sitting there with the entire IT staff, the IT director's there. It's now questions, comments, concerns time. And I say, recently, it seems that, the staff outside of IT seems to think that we're just sitting there waiting for them to fix their problem. And the IT director kind of flipped out on me, saying, as if I don't know how to say professionally, I'm sorry, now's not a good time. I was just stating the fact that it seems that there is an increase in expectation from the organization as a whole, and he took it as, I don't know how to handle the situation. So he's like, I don't see a big deal with the problem.
Interesting. So now that you've processed it, have you come up with anything before I share my thoughts?
No.
No, nothing. So it's been eating at you though, huh? Right?
No, because I lashed back.
How did that go? I mean, is that eating at you at least?
No, he didn't say anything after that, so I think we're good.
Oh my goodness, I doubt it. Although I should say I doubt it from the perspective of, I guess, what's the definition of good, right? So you're in a situation, you're feeling, what you said is what you really feel, right? You really feel like the organization thinks that IT just sits there and waits for the phone to ring. And isn't that what everybody thinks? I had that situation the other day at my own company. What does so-and-so really do? It's like, are you serious? are you serious? You know, but it happens. So, okay, so we've got a team of people, everybody thinks IT's sitting around, you're frustrated about it because you're in IT. And it sounds like the company's complaining about IT.
It's
Is
not
that-
that they're complaining, it's they're circumventing, the help desk, they're circumventing, they're stopping by, they're interrupting what I'm doing, I'm like their CFO.
Yeah, they're just dropping by, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and you're frustrated. Okay, so what did you want to get out? What do you want to do? What's your solution?
Well, he speaks to senior leadership and then trickle down, okay?
Yes.
So my expectation would be that he would express at the next meeting or whatever how extremely busy people are in the things that we're already doing for them.
Exactly.
So that was my
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. So if you're frustrated, most likely your director, I forget what title you said he was, is also frustrated. And by you putting frustration in the room, you're extra frustrating him, which is why you got what you got. Versus, I'm going to call him Joe. Hey Joe, you know what I think would be a good idea? I think it would be a great idea if we could really present to the rest of the company what we do, what we've got on our plates, the projects, the tasks, how the system works. I think we need to go back and refresh everybody from that. What do you think? Because again, the win-win here is you're on the same team. There's a high level of frustration going on. You adding more frustration with the comment that you made is not helping. That's not win-win. You're going to get the reaction you got most likely, and every time you're going to get that. Even though what you were trying, or what you were thinking you were saying is that the organization needs some education and they need some help and what have you, but that's not what you communicated, right? So win-win would be to understand, hey, this person that is my boss is dealing with this, he has to be dealing with the same frustration. And even if he's not, who cares? What you want is for him to go do what you want him to do, which is talk to the organization, make sure all the executives in the company and all the group leaders understand certain things about your department that you don't think are being understood. That's what you wanted to have happen. It's not what you said. It's maybe what you thought. Your frustrations came out instead, and then that doesn't help. It actually creates a backlash, right? Anybody else hear anything differently? Got any different suggestions, thoughts? Like what I said? Comments? Let's talk about it. That happens all the time. It's not easy. We're emotional creatures. We actually thrive on our emotions. They're almost uncontrollable unless our conscious mind is thinking. So that's why it's hard. And the key is positive and solutions. And so what we need to do as individuals is take the responsibility of 100%, the relationships in my life, I'm 100% responsible for them being whatever way I want them to be. And should I want my work relationships to be extremely positive, no matter every relationship, we're talking work, then I have to think about people's emotions, I have to care about them, and I have to use language that creates positive behavior, that creates positive, feelings. Positive feelings. And so on that note, I'm going to end since 1 minute left with this, which most people freak out about. I'll never forget being in an executive, we had an executive coach when I was at Rapid7, and they came in, and what are the things that you care about in the organization type of stuff. We were growing, bringing more execs in, and all that stuff, and 2 out of 8 of us put love on the sheet. People were freaking out in the room, like, what's that? Why would are you serious? This is the number one thing, and I apologize if people, sort of see it as, not apologize, I would say think deeper if you see it as silly, because at the end of the day, unless you can actually seek to feel love in the workplace, you're going to have disruption on a regular basis, and love has nothing to do with sex, and we know it at this point in our lives. So my point is, come from love. Start there. Like, this person that I'm talking to has the same emotions, the same feelings, and wants the same things I want in life. So let's start there, and then let's work our way to some skills. Other than that, practice, 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 practice. I use stickies. I still do, to remind myself of words, things that I trip myself up on, that I forget about. They're on my desk, and they're in code. So it's not gonna, whatever the word is, nobody that comes to my desk is gonna understand what I'm doing for my own training of my own brain, but I do. So that's my last hint for you all. We're out of time. I really appreciate you coming. I hope to do more of these talks.